Feeling like your child's emotional punching bag, these 7 daily habits will teach your child how to manage their big feelings without constant meltdowns. I'm Lisa, a child behavior expert and a parent coach, and I have over a decade of experience as a pediatric occupational therapist. I've worked with hundreds of families who were struggling with their child's big emotions and were stuck in a meltdown cycle. Through my one-on-one parent coaching, I taught parents the step-by-step method on how to handle their child's big emotions and teach them emotional regulation skills. I've seen families go from daily meltdowns and battles to calmness and cooperation. So I know exactly what you need to do to build that harmonious home that you have always wanted. So it seems like every little thing gets your child frustrated or angry, and it ends up in a big blowout, meltdown, tantrum, whatever you want to call it. When there's a change in plans, when it's time to transition off of something, when you say no to them, all of these things send them into a spiraling tantrum, leading to complete chaos and so much frustration in your home. Now, these aren't like one-off meltdowns and tantrums. These are happening on a consistent, frequent basis, maybe even daily. So you can feel the energy in your home is becoming consistently chaotic and stressful. And it's causing so much stress between you and your child, you and your spouse. Everyone in your family is feeling the stress. And this is what we see with families who are in the meltdown cycle. The whole household gets affected by your one child's tantrums. It makes everybody feel like they're on edge. Everyone is in a bad mood. And when you're in this environment all the time, there is a lot of resentment and anger that's just brewing inside your home. And when these problems don't get dealt with now, unfortunately, what I've seen in my practice is that these families end up snowballing all of these hard emotions and meltdowns. They start to compile over time. When your child becomes a teenager and a young adult, we see families really break apart. I know this sounds all doom and gloom, but I want to assure you that there are solutions to this, because I know how stuck and overwhelming it can feel when you have a child who's stuck in this meltdown cycle and you don't know what to do to help them and to teach them the skills on building emotional regulation. This is why I've created a step-by-step course on how to identify what is triggering your child's dysregulation, these tantrums, and what to do about them. I give you the tools and strategies on what you need to start implementing to help them build emotional regulation skills today. Through this course, I will teach you exactly how to support your child's emotions, what type of strategies you need to teach them, and how to build a calmer and more cohesive home. You'll get practical tools that you can start using right away, and you can check out all of this information in the description box below. If you're trapped in a meltdown cycle with your child, these are the 7 daily habits that I've used with all of my clients, and they have seen lasting results. They've seen improvements with their child's emotional control. They've found more peace and harmony in their homes, and you can have it too. So let's get into these 7 daily habits. The first is let them struggle a little. So I know that when our child is always getting into these meltdowns, it is very common and normal for us as parents to want to swoop in to try to prevent the meltdown from happening. So if your child is feeling frustrated because something is not going their way, we immediately want to swoop right in, fix the problem so that they don't escalate and blow up. But the thing is, our kids, when they are always saved, when they are not sitting in that feeling of frustration, they don't get to learn how to work through that frustrating feeling. And it's actually through that struggle that helps them to build their resilience. It helps them to build their skills in emotional regulation. Because think about it, if we always live a life that's easy, we don't experience hardship, we don't learn from it. So the same goes with our child's emotions. If they're feeling frustrated over something and someone is always trying to save them, trying to prevent them from feeling that frustration, they start to feel like that frustrating feeling is a bad thing, and they start to try to avoid it altogether. But that is not a healthy way to live, because in life, there's always going to be frustration, especially as they get older. When they get into higher grades, things are going to feel more frustrating, more hard for them. When they get out into the real world, the world is going to be a frustrating place, and they have to know how to handle that feeling. So the next time your child feels frustrated, let them work through that feeling for a little bit. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to completely walk out of the room and let them fend for themselves. You're still there to support them. But it's really finding this balance of not swooping in and not also stepping completely away, not giving them any help. It's finding that middle ground for them where you let them learn how to problem solve through that challenge. So if they're struggling with a homework assignment and they're starting to escalate, now you don't come right in and help them answer the question. You can sit there with them, validate those feelings. Hey, I know how frustrating this is for you. I get that. But let's see, what can we think about differently to help solve this problem together? That way, you are reinforcing that that feeling is okay and that the solution for your child is to try to think, try to use their minds to help them problem solve, to help them get out of that feeling of frustration on their own. Number 2 is model bouncing back. Now, we as parents, we all feel frustration. We all get upset, we get angry. Now, how we model, how we handle those emotions matters so much to our kids because they are watching us. So if we're feeling frustrated and we lose our temper, we start storming off, we start screaming and yelling, that is teaching and modeling to our child how to handle their own frustrations. So instead, what we need to do is reflect upon ourselves. How do we handle those moments when we get upset? So if your child does something and it's making you frustrated, do you yell at them and do you lose your temper? That is a moment that you need to start working on so that you can teach them how you're handling it yourself. So if you're starting to feel frustrated and you can feel your blood boiling, you can feel your face flushed red, learn to take those deep breaths to help calm yourself down. That teaches your child to do the same. Give yourself a pep talk. If you're feeling frustrated, you can say it out loud. I'm feeling really frustrated right now. I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to work through this. This is actually verbalizing what you are thinking inside so that your child actually knows. This can be something that they pick up for themselves. These are coping tools that you're applying on yourself that your child is going to learn to internalize and utilize when they're feeling frustrated. Number 3 is teach them to label their emotions and their feelings. So when they're feeling sad, when they're feeling upset, when they're feeling annoyed, help them label those words for them, especially with our young kids who don't know the words yet, or even our older kids who haven't really picked up the words, or, when they're really in those really tough moments, they're not even thinking about what emotion that they're feeling. You're helping them to bring that awareness in that moment so they start to recognize that that feeling is matched with this word. And that way, the more it becomes part of their awareness, they're able to find the right coping tools to help them work through that hard feeling. So the next time your child is feeling annoyed, maybe they studied really hard for a test and they didn't get the grade that they wanted. They're feeling extremely annoyed. They walk through the door and they're stomping their feet. They're throwing their bags on the floor. They're cursing. Now, you want to help them label what it is that they're feeling. Hey, I know you worked really hard on that test, and it must feel really annoying that you didn't get the mark that you wanted. Now, this gives them an opportunity to problem solve. You can ask them, now that you're feeling annoyed, and you want to do this outside the moment. Obviously, in the moment when they're actually feeling annoyed, we want to give them time to process that. So once that feeling has subsided and maybe it's the end of the night, you can tell that they're calm. This is where you're going to have the conversation again, bringing up that feeling. I saw that when you came home, you're feeling quite annoyed that you didn't do well on that test. How can we solve this problem for next time? Maybe there was something that they did not study properly. Maybe there's a better way that they can study for next time that's going to help them remember a theory that they were supposed to know for the test. This really is, not just sitting in the feeling of annoyance, but it's actually giving them tools to move forward and grow, which is what we need to always remember when we are teaching our kids about feelings and emotions, that it's not about just sitting in them and just relishing in that negative feeling, but it's actually having solutions for them so that we can work through it better the next time. Number 4 is prioritizing connection over correction. So your child might be coming home and the first thing that they do is they blow up. It just feels like every time they walk through the door, you're walking on eggshells because you don't know what their mood is going to be like. And they come through the door and they have this really sour mood, this like gray cloud looming over them, and you can feel it. and they throw their bags on the floor. Now, what do you do in that moment? Are you correcting them, saying, can you pick up that bag and put it where you're supposed to put it? Or are you connecting with them, asking, hey, how's everything going for you? How we approach moments when we can see that our child is having a hard time really matters, because that connection piece helps them to feel secure in that moment. When they're having really hard emotions and demands are put on them, expectations, words like, hey, you should be doing this, all of these things can amp up more emotions and send them off into states of dysregulation, which is why you might be seeing your kids spiraling out of control the moment you open your mouth, right? So now you have to evaluate what are the things that you are asking of them when you have your interaction with them, because that could be triggering them more into states of dysregulation and tantrums. And if we just start to shift away from this mindset of we need to correct our kids because they might be doing something incorrect and wrong in that moment, but that's not what they need. What they need right now is connection. They need to feel seen. They need to feel heard. How can you create that safe, secure environment for them? It might just be holding a silent space, because sometimes when they walk through the door and you ask them, hey, how are you, son? That just sends them off into a big spiral that maybe you just don't need to say anything. Maybe it's just holding the door open for them, letting them come in, letting them settle down in silence, and then you're able to have a talk with them. So giving them that space can also be a way of connection. And I know that sounds super counterintuitive, but the truth is, words aren't always necessarily things that make us feel connected. It's actually the space, the environment that we're in that helps to build a strong connection with their child. Do they feel safe and secure in your home environment to finally relax and decompress? And then they're in a better state to talk. So these are a lot of mindset shifts that I teach parents how to really see things differently than how we were kind of taught in our own childhood and growing up. Number 5 is nourish our child with healthy and nutritious foods. I know this one sounds a little bit like, are we in a diet course? Like, am I watching a dieting nutrition video? But the truth of the matter is, food and nutrition ties into everything related to our kids' health and even our health. And so I really want to emphasize the importance of this daily habit, because what we feed our kids is what's fueling their brains. And so making sure that they're getting a whole, wholesome diet of fruits and vegetable and proteins and the right kinds of carbohydrates, those are very important, because the more we can fuel our kids with the right kind of nutritious food, the better they're going to feel in their bodies, the better their minds are going to work. And that's what's going to help them be able to use their logical thinking brain when they're starting to escalate with their emotions. Because what happens is when our emotions rise up, we start to shut off our thinking brain, which is this part of the brain, our prefrontal cortex, and we start to react out of our reactive brain, which is called our amygdala. And so we want our brains to learn how to function out of our prefrontal cortex. And this takes time. This isn't something that our kids are innately, they're just born to use their thinking brain. It actually is an executive functioning skill that takes 25 years of their life to learn. And so it is a process. But if we want to help their thinking brains to activate and to work functionally, we want to fuel it with the right kinds of food. Number 6 is creating consistency and structure in your child's day. The more you have structures and routines, the more things are predictable for your child. For a lot of kids, when they struggle with executive functioning, where it's hard for them to plan and organize their thoughts and their surroundings, when there isn't structure and there isn't routines in place, they actually have to work so much harder to organize things in their minds. And that's where we see a lot of disruption and a lot of explosive emotions start to escalate, because they're needing to work so much harder that they can't control their own emotions. So the more we put these structures, it actually helps them to feel more stable and secure because they know exactly what to expect. So what a routine can look like is a morning routine. If you're finding that every morning you're walking on eggshells, you're in this meltdown cycle with them because you're asking them to do this, that, the other, and it feels like there is no routine in place, that is what's causing the meltdown in the first place. So setting the right kinds of expectations for your child where they know exactly what is the routine. The first thing they need to do is go brush their teeth, get themselves ready. Then they need to go have breakfast. They need to pack their backpacks, and they need to do this in an allotted amount of time, utilizing a timer, a visual timer that they can actually see, because a lot of our kids, even if they're older, they may struggle with time management, that they actually need to have a visual in place to help them stay on track and get through each portion of those tasks. Habit number 7 is engage in sensory calming activities daily. So this is incorporating different sensory techniques into your child's day to help them feel more regulated and relaxed. A lot of our kids who are in meltdown cycles, they're the ones that have a really hard time at school, or they get overwhelmed from being at school because there's just so many things that they have to process. Not only is there academic demands on them, there's social demands. They have to know how to interact with their peers. They have to act a certain way so that they can engage with their friends. There's a lot of sensory input that you get in a school environment. There's lots of bright lights. There's lots of sounds. There's a lot of movements of other kids around them. There can be a lot of shift in schedule. So you might be finding on days where your child's school routine is off schedule because maybe there's an assembly going on, maybe there was a fire drill planned and things just kind of shifted, that those are the days your child's having a much harder time when they transition home from school. So proactively having sensory calming activities in your child's day can help them to regulate their nervous system. So when they come home, having a little calm corner for them set up where they can lay there, you can dim out the lights, you can have a weighted blanket on them, you can have a nice soft relaxing song playing in the background. Those are some things that you can have already pre-set up for them so that they know exactly what to do when they come home. They have a calm, safe corner for them to relax and decompress. And this is actually such a significant strategy that has worked with so many of my families, because we really don't realize how stressful of a day it is, or how stressful of a day it can be at our kids' school, that when they come home, we kind of expect that they should be fine, right? They're already home. They should be able to just kind of do all of their daily tasks, put away their stuff. They should transition into doing their homework because they have to. But we have to factor in that they need this break time. Their day has been go, 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 go. And that amplifies a lot of emotions. It makes your child feel very overwhelmed, which can rise up a lot of emotions, and any kind of small demands can set them off. So we want them to down-regulate, help them feel more stable and grounded before we put any kind of demands at home on them. So I want you to remember that emotional regulation is a skill. It is not something that your child is just born with. And every child's trajectory of how they develop emotional regulation looks different. So you might have one child where their emotional regulation seemed pretty normal. Like they didn't get into these big tantrums that your other child's experiencing. Or maybe you're seeing the other kids who are your child's age and they're not experiencing that either. And that's okay, because everyone's emotional regulation skill development happens at a different pace. And also remember that emotional regulation, it's a skill that develops over a 25-year span. It's part of executive functioning skills. So in order to help your child, if you're noticing that they're struggling with emotional regulation skills, it's not about just, taking a back seat, just hoping and praying things are going to get better. Please don't do that, because I've seen too many parents who just kind of waited to see if this would just phase out. And this makes things significantly worse, because you're not giving your child the tools that they need to help them learn to develop the skill. You need to be proactive in building your child's emotional regulation skills. And again, this is why I built my course. It's a step-by-step program that's going to teach you what exactly is triggering your child to have these emotional outbursts and what to actually do about them. I give you practical tools and strategies that you can implement right away to start teaching your child. There's plenty of resources that your child can use with visual tools that's going to teach them all about their emotions. Now, for a limited time, I'm offering an exclusive discount. My course is at a 35% off discount, and you can get the code right below in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video informative. Please remember to like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you guys on the next one.